Hey, welcome again, Alex. Great to have you on once more.
Hey, great to be back. Thank you so much for having me.
For those that haven't watched the first episode, can you give me 30 seconds? This is Alex.
Hey, so this is Alex. My name is Alex Forsyth. I am a senior software engineer with Amazon CodeCatalyst, based out of New York, and specifically, I'm responsible for the Amazon CodeCatalyst team and our little product here.
And thanks a lot for coming on again. Last time we recorded, talked a little bit about use cases for custom blueprints. How do we have them? Why do we have them? And how we can leverage custom blueprints in a bigger environment. Today, I wanted to get some tips and tricks out of you on how do developers interact and work with custom blueprints. And I have one first question that I wanted to start with because Thorsten brought that up in our recording. Thorsten works as an independent consultant with a lot of different organizations. That means that he builds his blueprints in his own space. Now, his customers or clients might not be in the same space. Does he have a possibility today to already share those blueprints? Those blueprints with them, and make the blueprints available for them to use.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we have sort of two possibilities to share them. The first one is you can directly, after you've built a blueprint, you can directly publish your blueprint into any space that you are both an admin of, and that space is flagged for the enterprise tier.
How do I do that?
So today, via the command line, you can. It's two options, right? You can either through the command line run yarn blueprint publish dash dash publisher some other space. By default, it'll publish into the space that you've created the blueprint in. But I can just show you right now if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And I can give you, and now I can give you a space. Do I need a space ID or a space name where I want you to publish a
Just the
blueprint?
name of the space. So right here,
Just the name of the space.
Alex Forsyth space. I'll go ahead and hit create blueprint. I don't know. Can you see this? Oh, that's odd. All right. Well,
I
it
can
opened in a
see
new
this,
tab, but
yes.
it's supposed to go there. Yeah, that's odd way it shares the screen. Cool. So I'm going to name my blueprint my demo blueprint. So this will create a new blueprint in the Alex Forsyth space. If I use some of the code here, you'll see that actually the blueprint is just an npm package, right? And right here, we've got inside the packages.json, we've got a whole bunch of different things. So we can do yarn blueprint release. And by default, it sets the publisher as Alex Forsyth. But if I set the publisher as something else, I can publish into some other space. Same thing here is I can just change, I think it's the author. Yeah, publishing space right here. If I want to by default publish it somewhere else, just do that. Cool. So this looks good. I'll hit create.
But now I'm confused because in the last video you told me that this is all Progen based kind of, and that means that I'm not allowed to touch package.json usually in Progen generated projects.
That's correct. You would usually touch this in the Progen RC. That is a very astute observation. But yes. So if we go here, so I can just open this up in a dev environment directly, really fast here. So let's open this up in.
And while we wait for the dev environment to start, this means that, as you just said, this is a package.json. This means this is an npm package. This means that I can publish it anywhere as well?
Correct. You can publish it directly to public npm if you'd like. So blueprints by default come with a little workflow. We come with a release workflow. So what this release workflow does is it takes the source of the blueprint. It checks if it is a release commit or not. It then builds the blueprint and commits back a version bump. And then it goes ahead and publishes the blueprint directly into CodeCatalyst. What you can do here is you can add another step that publishes this thing into public npm. This is the second way of distributing a blueprint that Thorsten might like, is you can actually build a workflow that is triggered once a day or something along those lines, and it can check, hey, is there a new version of this blueprint on public npm? And if there is, great, pull it down and publish it directly into my space. This way, Thorsten can build a blueprint in his space, distribute it to public npm, or distribute it however he would like, and have each of his
And
clients.
yeah,
Uh,
and obviously also to one of his private npm
exactly.
repository stores if he wants to, right? So I think this. So does this mean? Sorry for talking on top of you. That the publish blueprint step in this workflow will actually publish to an npm package that is CodeCatalyst hosted.
So what this will do, so publish blueprint right here takes a blueprint tarball. So if you run npm pack, it's the actual like tarball that represents an npm package, and distributes that npm package into CodeCatalyst. This was done somewhat intentionally because blueprints are, so while blueprints are npm packages, for ease of consumption and distribution, we don't want to rely on any particular package manager. So if you want to build a blueprint in, I don't know, Java, or you want to use Rust or whatever, right? All we care about is that tarball. We don't necessarily care that it is in fact an npm package, although blueprints are by default npm packages.
Okay, cool. And this means that potentially I can also use the packages that are now available in CodeCatalyst as an npm kind of target to publish my stuff, my blueprints into that.
Certainly, yeah.
Today.
The note there though is that these packages are not cross space, right? So if you have multiple spaces, they won't all have access to the same npm package, or they won't have access to the same npm repository. So in Thorsten's case, what he would probably want to do is he'd want to distribute this blueprint to an npm repository that he would share with his clients, right? If he's not comfortable to distribute it manually. So he could either do that, or for testing purposes, he could manually publish this blueprint into, let's say, into one of his client spaces.
What I don't yet understand is how publishing that to npm would then give me the same functionality that I have today using the blueprints tab in CodeCatalyst, right? Because it would not be the same. Would it be? No. I would not get UI support.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would. It would.
Really?
Yeah, it'd be exactly the same, except the client would not have access to Thorsten's codebase. They would have it used exactly in the same way that Thorsten would have used it. And so what I mean by this, and because blueprints are distributed just as tarballs, what you could do is you could pull from npm. You could pull that tarball from npm, pull it down, check if it's the latest version or not, and then go ahead and publish it directly into your space using the exact same publishing action.
Okay. Makes sense. Is the dev environment ready?
It is. So it's just happens to open in another tab, which is a little annoying here, but I promise it's up. Cool. So I've opened this up in Cloud9. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Let me know if you can't see this. Nope. Well, this is being unhelpful. Hopefully you can see this, but it's unfortunately not zooming in.
I can see it. We'll make it work, I guess.
All right. So I'm going to go into my amazing blueprint. I'll run yarn to build the thing, and I'll do yarn and yarn build. So this will install my dependencies and build my code base, and just give you a quick tour about like what exactly we're looking at here. Inside the source repository, we have the blueprint.ts, which is the main entry point. This options interface right here is what is interpreted by the blueprint wizard to dynamically generate a UI. So it's like a form builder that takes a look at the abstract syntax tree, the AST that's generated off of this interface. So for example, if I add a string field here, right, I maybe ask for a string, and I say, well, my blueprint class takes a string, I would expect the front end to then generate a string. There's a lot of very powerful things we can do because blueprints are arbitrary code, and because blueprints are TypeScript here. We can do.
What I did not find yet is a documentation about all of those annotations and stuff like that.
They should be on our public documentation, but if not, I'll link them and you can include them at the bottom here. But this is really arbitrary code, right? You could plug in an LLM here if you wanted. You could, call, somewhere on the internet, right? You could do a Bitcoin miner. Right? I mean, probably not. You'd probably not want to do that because you get billed for it, but you could, right? You could do just about anything you'd like here. This is a really, really powerful concept. This is a bit of arbitrary code that has access to the code base that it's targeted against as well. So you can write things like transformers. You could do things like have the blueprint scan your existing code base for example, a log4j vulnerability, and then go ahead and fix it as well.
And this functionality and possibility gives me the idea to request a feature that helps me to actually approve new versions getting into the catalog.
Yeah.
Because essentially I want to do kind of the same kind of pull request view that I do for normal code, and maybe a little bit stricter here because changes to blueprints might need to be reviewed by security as well.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So that's the kind of stuff that we need to get.
Totally.
Okay, cool.
So let me show you a quick thing really fast here. So if we do yarn blueprint :release, if I can spell, release, and then I'll do publisher. Then I'm just going to go back into CodeCatalyst and find another space that I own.
I gave you, you don't, you're not admin for my space. That's true. You need to be administrator of the other space,
yes,
right?
I do. So I need to be administrator of both spaces. And I need to, so I'm going to just publish it into our internal blueprints thing. I'll give y'all a sneak peek of everything under the hood here.
You are actually administrator into the space that I gave you. If you want to publish to ours.
Sure. What is your space name again?
AWS-Heroes with OA. I put it into the chat here.
Is that right?
All capitals, AWS dash capital H he ROES. That's our space name.
Unfortunately, I can't see the chat, but I don't think it matters whether it's.
It doesn't matter. Let's just try.
Let's give this a shot
and see what happens.
It's capital or not. It all gets lowercase anyway.
I think that there is an E missing, but I'm not sure. We'll see that.
Oh, there is an E missing.
So this would
right.
So what would this do now? This would now put this blueprints, make it release this blueprint into the space,
Correct.
which means it becomes available, and I can now use it to create a project.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. So what this will do is, even though the blueprint code base isn't in this AWS Heroes space, the blueprint itself, the distribution of the blueprint, the tarball that blueprint generates is. And so what I'll show you here is, so inside this dist here, we have this is the bit of the blueprint that actually gets distributed. This is the tarball right here, the TGC. And this is this is an NPM package. All NPM packages are tarballs, but this is actually what gets sent into CodeCatalyst and distributed. There's other cool parts of, while we wait for this to go, other cool parts of blueprints, like we have a README. This is, if you try to use a blueprint, this is what will show up. Oh, cool. Looks like it's connecting here, right? So actually it is generating a stream to right here and then attempting to publish into this space. And cool, sweet. So it pops up with a friendly little link here, so I can see this blueprint directly inside the AWS Heroes.
Oh, that's cool. Didn't see that before.
And then I can also enable this directly in AWS Heroes as well if I open here. So I'm actually just going to open this up. And it's opening again in a new tab, but it's fine. Cool. So now you'll notice I'm in the AWS Heroes space, no longer in the inside the Alex Forsyth space. But I am now able to use my brand new blueprint. And by default, it really doesn't generate much of anything. So yeah, I think it just generates like a dev file.
That was not the purpose of this. So this is amazing, right? Because I can just confirm that on my side, I'm also able to see that blueprint, which is really cool. And also now this has all of the lifecycle functionalities as well that I have in my other space, right? Which actually also means that I can use a newer version in my original space than I'm actually having in my target space, which is the one that I published here too. Right? Now, maybe let's go back to the dev environment. That release workflow always generates a new release version number, right? So that means that if Thorsten wants to publish this to 10 spaces, he will burn 10 release numbers for that, right?
So the release workflow doesn't have permission to publish into another space. So that's why I was saying the release workflow would increment once, and then as part of that incrementation, right, go ahead and distribute it somewhere, right? So if you take a look here, this is the release workflow. So we say we build it, right? This is kind of annoying to read. Let me just build and commit. Okay, cool. We publish blueprint, right? And what the release workflow does is it just takes a package path, right? So it just takes the dist here, blah, blah. I can add another step that then says something like publish npm. Publish to artifact.
It would be cool to see the outline of the workflow in the Cloud9 IDE.
I totally agree with you. I think that'd be awesome. But I would then go ahead and define my publishing to my private.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So if you
check for it
with that, I can then publish to a different npm and or also to a different space potentially.
Precisely.
Right.
Yeah. And you could use secrets for that or something along those lines.
Cool. Let's go take a step back to the README. So if you look at the custom blueprints, or if you look at the blueprints that CodeCatalyst has out of the box, there is beautiful architecture diagrams in it, right? How do I do that today as a blueprint developer? How do I add the images? Because I didn't manage to do that yet.
Right. So I think what you're referring to is this README. So this is the README of the npm package. So also the README of the blueprint, and this is what gets displayed for people. And this is just Markdown. So anything that's supported Markdown is supported here. The way that images work in our CodeCatalyst blueprints, and we're frankly working on making this a little bit easier, but the way they work in our CodeCatalyst blueprints is we have a link to a source, like an image that's hosted somewhere. Right? So you can either host an image yourself, use one of very many tools. The Blueprints team also exposes a CLI, a little bit of CLI helpfulness here. So if I go into my basic blueprint, you can do npx. So I think we expose the Blueprint CLI, and you can use that directly. This is a little bit of an undocumented hack here, but let me just show you npx blueprint help. So that'll invoke our CLI, and help will list everything that we can do here. So, right, this is all the internals, like I can run synthesis and all this kind of stuff. I can validate the AST, validate all the options. I can also upload an image, right? So what this will do is upload an image directly to a AWS account. So I'll do npx blueprint.
And CodeCatalyst hosted an owned AWS account, but makes it public visible. Right?
No, actually, this will use your personal AWS credentials and go into your personal AWS account. So not one at all that is managed by CodeCatalyst. So internally, these are currently hosted by internal service accounts. We have isolated service accounts, but it's essentially accounts owned by the AWS service team. Have CloudFront distributions for these particular images. But we would, at the moment, distribute this to just via your own distribution. This is essentially just a wrapper to make it easier to upload an image behind CloudFront on AWS. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. We are working on some stuff to make that a little bit easier. so you don't even have to do this. And
then I can refer to that URL in my README in the same way that I would with other Markdown
precisely. So after I run this, it'll work, right? It'll go, hey, do I have an AWS account? Whatever. It'll upload the image, and it'll spit out a little URL that's publicly available behind CloudFront. Should be almost trivially cheap, just because it's just serving an image.
Okay, cool. What is that generate assessment and validate assessment thing down there? Do you happen to know that as well?
Yes, astute observation. So this right here is how you test blueprints end-to-end at scale. This is not fully released just yet, but the models are. Wow, great observation. I really hope to show you a little bit more soon. But what this is meant to allow you to do is...
Let's just not go into details.
If
it's not yet released, Alex, let's keep that for a little bit later and talk about that in a few weeks from now. But maybe we can just spend and we're kind of at the end of what we had planned for today. So maybe just one sentence. Now, today, I know from Progen that I would be doing something like snapshot testing for Progen projects. Is this what you do for Blueprints as well?
It's exactly right. So Blueprints, snapshot testing for Blueprints works much the same way that it does for front-end components. If you think about a blueprint, what it generates is an output of code, right? Like here's code, here's you run synthesis, whatever. That's exactly the same problem that front end sort of what's it called, code bases have, where you want to test the output of a front end code base and verify that it's the same and repeatable. So what you can do, and this, I'm not sure exactly how well this is documented, but if we open up our Progen RC here, and by the way, this is all well typed and things like that, you can set snapshot testing. I believe it's in the, man, I really wish this like auto-completed a little bit better here. Blueprint snapshot configuration, there we go. So then, snapshot configuration, snapshot globs, go. So then I can say, what subset of files would I like to snapshot test? So I'll just say all of them, right? I think that's fine. And then if I run yarn progen, you'll notice that
yarn progen is now required to regenerate the package JSON. So just repeating that for those that are not familiar with Progen, right?
Yes.
The same concept of snapshot testing is also one of the best practices for CDK projects, right? Where you also generate the CloudFormation templates, snapshots, and then compare them. And I think that works the same way over here. Right?
Precisely. So you'll notice after I run yarn progen, this will actually regenerate portions of my entire application. And I will now have the ability to do snapshot. I also have a snapshot driver that gets generated. This is kind of just a driver file that drives all the snapshot. Oh, what's going on here? Yep. So here's a snapshot driver that has just gotten generated. And then let me do yarn install jest, I think. So it's needed.
And then we can execute yarn test at the end. And it's going to
So you'll
fail because there is no snapshots available. But once you have recorded them, you can then use that as a baseline. And you could, of course, also integrate that within your release workflow and stuff like that, right? So maybe that's something, Alex, that you could add to the release workflow as well, right? Just enable that by default. So we ensure that blueprints that are built are actually tested and verified, and someone looked at the output before they actually released.
Precisely. Yeah, that's very astute observation. That's precisely exactly the way it works. Once you run yarn test, it'll by default test that the blueprint has generated the same thing that it did last time. And if it didn't, it'll tell you why. And you can always run test update to regenerate the snapshot tests with the latest iteration.
Okay, Alex, you got one more pitch to show us something that is released and makes you really excited that maybe you have not seen anyone using yet? Is there anything that you would want to show us?
I think the last thing that I think is a little bit slept on is the ability to, so every blueprint has this is a context dot project. So what this will allow you to do is access off the base blueprint class. We have a context object that tells you about the context of the project that the blueprint's going into, and this is much more useful than I think a lot of people understand at the moment. So this is all well typed. You'll see that the project object has a whole bunch of very, very useful information, like, where is it? What's the npm configuration of it, right? What phase of resynthesis is this in, etc. But the thing I really want to chat about is, if I go back here, the source, right? The src, and then I can do like dot find all. So what this will allow me to do is this will allow me to find all of the files across potentially multiple repositories. And I have very unique traversal options here as well. So I can filter by a repository, I can filter by a particular file glob, etc. What this allows me to do is this allows me to scan in across potentially multiple source repositories inside the same CodeCatalyst project, and then run transformations across that code. This allows me to build very, very powerful tools to analyze my code at scale, analyze my code across multiple repositories, across my whole company at scale, and then run compliance across the code itself in a way that wasn't quite possible before, right? Sure, you could do things like you could implement Dependabot this way, right? But I think once people start playing with this, Dependabot is going to look somewhat trivial, right? Because it's not just fixing particular dependencies, it's potentially reworking and rebuilding entire code bases based off newer best practices. You could do things like fix log4j. You could do things like full-on Java upgrades, right?
We can integrate Amazon Q code transformation into this blueprint, actually, which at the moment that I executed actually upgrades to the latest Java version. Right? But I think this is really, really powerful, and there is a lot of use cases for this one as well. One thing that I found out in the last days is that there is a challenge with executing asynchronous code here.
Oh,
right. So at the moment, you need to make it synchronous, right? That I struggled a lot with that in the last blueprint that I built.
So this is so because blueprints are by default async, you can write an async executor like I think it's async void, something like that, and then
so I don't know why, but in the version that I used, they weren't. So that's why I struggled. So, but if you say that blueprints are async, then we can chat about that offline. I can show you the problem that I have, right? But I think that really makes it a lot more powerful than it was before, and you can do a lot of things as well with this stuff.
Yep. Yeah, you can actually.
Cool, Alex. We're really run way about above time.
Yeah.
To be honest, I would love to just say thanks for today. Just say this was great. I personally learned a lot. I'm looking forward to maybe do more like this with you if people are interested in it. So for the next session that we do, maybe there's people in the community that would want to ask some stuff, right? So please reach out to me on socials, reach out to me on YouTube directly in the comments below. And if there's anything that you would like Alex and myself to talk about when looking at custom blueprints, we would happily do so, right?
Excellent. Well,
Alex, any last final words from your side?
I would just like to say thank you so much for sort of your passion and dedication here. It's really cool to see. There's a lot of, I think, quite interesting things we can do with blueprints that will hopefully transform the way that software engineers write software. And I think what we are doing here, and internally it's quite obvious that we can sort of start to trivialize huge problems of software development as a discipline. So we have there's a lot of promise here, and I'm really excited to see where we go from here.
And this is a great start towards making things a little bit more accessible and understandable as well, right? So I really think that the complexity of blueprints is something that we need to make clear, and we need help from others in the community to explain blueprints in a simple way so people really get them to use. So please build custom blueprints, share them with us, right? And make them accessible to others so we can build on top of what you do.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Alex, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.